Hello, welcome to the Literature Review Assessment Guide. Today we're going to be looking at the Literature Review Assessment task as part of the negotiated study in legal studies as part of the ACT BSSS curriculum and course. What we're going to be doing today is talking about the Literature Review Assessment that you have for legal studies and about the best ways to approach it. We're going to be using these cards to frame your basic note-taking topics. Treat them sort of as your subheadings. So what you'll be able to do is take notes as we progress through this. So, writing a literature review is an inevitable part of being a student. You may be asked to do it for university in future. You might be asked to do it now, which you are. That's why you're in this situation. So, before spending hours of your time working on a project involving a literature review, it helps to understand what it is and why it's important. No matter the context you're studying it in, a literature review is an essential part of the research process. Some important functions of a review are that it helps you to understand the topic and it helps you, more importantly, to develop your own perspective on a problem. Now, that problem is what you are going to be establishing as part of your thesis generation for the panel presentation assessment 3. You might hear phrases in class from your teacher or from other students or the literature online saying, what does literature show us? Connect your ideas to the literature. Survey the literature on the topic. Well, before you can actually review the literature, you need to make sure that you understand what is meant by the literature. A good definition of the literature is that it's a collection of all the writings on a topic that are scholarly in nature. It can be articles that are peer reviewed, books, and other sources. Of course, these all make up the literature. Often there are major works that have been written on a topic, and then later, other people will write works which build upon those original topics. So, for instance, if there was a study into how students best learn, and they decided that the best way you learn is to use your hands and be practical, maybe a data research followed by a paper 5 years later may look at that and go, well, it's not just your hands, it's also about the idea of play. So it's building upon the topic, but adding to the original work. So you can kind of see it about, you can kind of see the idea that research is more of a story. So looking at all these pieces of the puzzle and adding your own piece to the puzzle. And of course, you're not going to add your own research paper per se, but you're going to look at all these threads and you're going to put them together. So often they've been written, and then, like I said, they build on them. These later works tend to be extending or responding to the original work in some way. Basically, the literature is a continuously evolving network of scholarly works and interact with each other. As you do the research as part of this assignment and for your panel presentation, you'll begin to understand the relationships in the evolving web of research and how your own ideas connect into it. Like I said before, research is like telling a story, a chain story, where each writer starts with a partial story created by others and then takes it where the imagination leads. It's like the whispers game you used to play where you speak to people and add words. The existing literature is that story so far. You must know where you have been before you can go forward. But research is not just one linear story. Many different lines of study contribute to the story that you're trying to write. Your job in the literature review is to see where all those loose ends are in the various fields that are most closely related to what you want to actually look at, and to figure out what needs to be done next. The background to any good story must be explained carefully, or the reader does not know why one thing is important and something else is not. The reader must understand what is going on. In the same way, researchers need the background in the literature of their discipline to know what is going on in their field of study. So, how do you turn a network of articles into a cohesive review of the literature? How do you find and tell the story behind your research topic? Well, reviewing the literature is like participating in a conversation. As you read and evaluate articles, you begin to understand how they are connected and how they form the story that the authors are telling. Then you start to formulate your own response or contribution. The process, discovering relationships in literature and developing and connecting your ideas to it, is what helps you turn a network of articles into a coherent review of the literature. Well, how do you get started? Well, there are a few key steps that you need to follow year 12. Your first step needs to actually be creating and focusing that topic or thesis statement. At this stage, of course, you might need to tweak your topic or the scope of your research as you discover more about the literature or more about the topic in literature. Then, of course, you need to do your actual research as well. You need to go to databases such as Google Scholar, go to the Gungahlin College library, go to the public libraries, go to article databases, e-journal databases. There's so many things you can look at to find the research that you need to be doing. All along, you'll be using your brain. You'll want to evaluate these sources, and you want to find and select articles, books, and other publications within that research that will be the most useful. Then you need to read through them and try to understand, analyze, and critique while you read. While researching and organizing your paper, you'll collect a lot of information from a lot of different sources. Then, of course, you'll need to write and revise your final paper and create your final bibliography. So when I say paper here, I'm talking about your panel presentation. Writing a literature review is a process, but it's not always linear. One step does lead to another, but sometimes your research or reading will point you back to earlier steps as you learn more about your topic and about the literature. At this point, you might be wondering, how do I actually review the literature I find? Well, let's look. In the most general sense, it means that you can collect and read all the various relevant papers in the literature of the topic. You may want to provide an overview, but also highlight key concepts and important papers. As you read, you might want to start describing and summarizing each article, sort of what we've been doing in class week by week. Then you start to make connections by comparing those papers. You'll need to evaluate, analyze, and organize the information from your reading. When you work with the literature, you'll read and critically examine articles and books to see what is important or what might be out of scope from what you're looking at, and analyze arguments for strengths and weaknesses. When working with the literature, it's important to look for relationships between publications. Some of the important relationships between publications that you discover might include major themes and important concepts, as well as critical gaps and disagreements. But do not fall into the trap of making your review a laundry list of summaries of the works you read. It is not just a list of summaries. It's not an annotated bibliography. Your goal should be going one step further, integrating and synthesizing what you are finding that the literature says into something new. Ideally, you'll create your own outline of the literature on your topic. For example, let's say that you read or discover 3 major concepts that are important in the literature and relevant to your research. You should then identify how the literature, that is, the content that you've looked at in individual articles and books and other publications, relates to the concepts you've discovered. What is important is that you develop and present your own organization and understanding of the literature. Then, when you write your literature review, you will end up with a document that is organized by the concepts and relationships you found and developed based upon your own reading and thinking. Your review will not only cover what has been published on your topic, but will include your own thoughts and ideas. Of course, you must write these academically. You'll be telling the specific story that sets the background and shows the significance of your research. Researching and writing a good literature review is a challenging and sometimes intimidating process. Don't be afraid to seek assistance, whether from me, another teacher, your peers, or the college librarian. Hopefully, this has given you a bit of insight into what is expected both within Gungahlin College and out in the university world of tertiary education. I hope this cleared up the assessment. If you have any questions, please post below or send me an email. And apart from that, good luck.